Yeah, I would say honestly, not just for diet, this is just in general, like for life, really, outside of fitness, even. I always like to think of motivation. It gets you going, but consistency keeps you growing. So literally getting that motivation, that spark to have you go in that direction you want to go in. That's what you need to actually get going in whatever direction you want to go in for your life. But if you don't have that consistency, that determination to see it through, then if that motivation goes out, then you're not going to have anything to back it up with. So you have to back up that motivation just in the event that it goes out with determination, consistency. And by doing that, you got to have an action plan and a strategy.
Hello and welcome to Pathways. I am your host, Amber Stitt. And today we welcome the official Roman Fischer. Welcome, Roman.
Thanks for having me. It's awesome being here.
I like to talk to my audience about strategies to achieve financial freedom. And I really talk about the core of it is focusing on talents and doing what you love. But I also know that if you don't feel well, it's really hard to be doing any of these things. And I thought you'd be a perfect guest for the show because I think that's what you live and breathe every day. Is that correct?
Yes, health and wellness, as they do say, health is wealth.
I know, it's the buzzword. I know you talk about mind, body, and soul. If I follow you, I hear these things that you're saying, and also be all in or all out. I know that you have said that as well. And really at the core, we're looking at truly being happy. And I think wellness is a big part of that. Can you tell the audience a bit of how you got into this overall, lifestyle of helping people?
Yeah, of course. So I wasn't actually always in health and fitness myself. I know it's a shock to a lot of people that have been following me for quite some time now. But what really got me into fitness initially from the get-go were a few different factors, honestly. So one of which was actually my brother who got into weightlifting, seeing him going from being more skinny and everything to actually increasing his strength and his muscle mass on his body. So seeing my younger brother do that firsthand, I'm like, okay, if my younger brother can do that, I can do that too. Definitely. Can't let him outlift me. So that's what really got me into fitness initially.
Right,
just with
exactly.
the physical activity and weightlifting aspect of fitness and even health. But beyond that, I wasn't really into healthy eating. I didn't have my nutrition in check, so to speak, and I didn't really have or follow a clean eating pattern. So my weightlifting and workouts were starting to get more consistent, and that was more grounded. But my diet, for lack of a better word, was actually not really in check. So after I went through a bit of just working out and being healthy in that regard, but not with my diet, there were a couple other things that actually led me to clean up my diet. So one of which was actually doing a lot of researching on the ingredients that go into our foods and even our drinks that we consume on almost, if not a daily basis. And just seeing all the, effects that we actually get from those things, especially in the long term or the long run. Sugar being one of those just many culprits of a very unhealthy eating lifestyle that I had. And I was really heavily addicted with sugar, added sugar. And so my grandpa was too. And my grandpa being one of those people that I knew and loved and cared about, he actually was so heavily into sugar that he developed ultimately. Now, it wasn't the only thing, but it was one of those things that led to his cancer and, eventual death, which obviously was a very hard thing to deal with in that moment, in that area of my life. But while it did put me in that, dark place, that depression, that disappointment, despair that people go through, of course, understandably after losing a loved one, it also had me ultimately just use that pain as fuel or fire to actually want to transform my own body and my own life with what I was eating, what I was drinking, and not just to continue my weightlifting that I, picked up, no pun intended, for my brother, but also it encouraged me to want to eat healthier and just really cut out a lot of the added sugar. Now, of course, it was not an overnight thing, but it definitely was something that came in phases. But in doing so, I ultimately got myself out of, those unhealthy dirty eating habits. And now I've never
Dirty
looked
eating.
back. Yeah, I've never looked back since too. I mean, I'm so addicted in a good way to vegetables, fruits, sugars that are natural sugars, not added sugars like the sucrose and a lot of candies and pastries.
Yeah.
I'm now more just fixated on craving those healthier foods, more complex carbs like whole grain bread. I used to hate whole grain bread. I used to hate that with a passion. Like when my mom used to pack that for me for lunch when I was a kid, I would always get so mad. I'd be like, okay, why did you pack me this? Why not the white bread? But now it actually, it's a huge 180 for me. I would now hate to have, white bread in front of me. So just really making that change due to all the research I did. And also, of course, what happened with my grandpa and using that as encouragement actually and fuel to eat better and just live better as a whole, to make him proud and make myself proud and really help out people around me from there. Cause I got that, euphoria. I got those endorphins and just the addiction of a healthy lifestyle. And I wanted to share that with everyone around me.
Isn't it so interesting that, or maybe you got to tell me if this happens to you, because maybe people don't mind given what you do and people come to you for help. But when I'm out and about with a friend, family member, I'm in a different environment outside of my home, and I'm carefully monitoring the menu to say, okay, for me, I choose to not have dairy, most likely gluten for me, gives me a little bit of a rashy kind of output, can make me very itchy, like an eczema. And other doctors I've worked with, we do blood tests to see what kind of absorption levels, micronutrients, and what should my body be having. We do that on a quarterly basis. When you're dialed in, though, it can really annoy other people. In the world that you're in, maybe people wouldn't say anything to you, but I can tell I can be almost annoying to people. And I'm like, hey, don't worry about me. I got it. You order what's good for you. I'll be over here. But it's a very bizarre interaction that paying attention to specifics can be not always well received. Maybe it's a reflection of themselves. I don't know. Any experience with that?
Actually, over the years, I've had quite a bit of that. I've had people tell me, because I'm actually really heavily into organic, and I try to eat anything and everything as organic as possible, with the exceptions of like chicken breast, or let's say there's a fruit that has a lot of covering and, like a orange. Pesticides don't really seep into the orange very easily beyond, its outer layer. But when it comes to like, apples, carrots, stuff that you eat the surface of, most of the foods, really, I try to eat organic and even drink organic, like if it's milk, let's say, as much as possible. And I've been told like that I'm super, particular, picky. I've even really been told that I'm crazy for going organic and opting organic, and it's a waste of money.
Yeah.
You're wasting your money. You're wasting your time. I'm like, no, this stuff's really good for you. It sounds crazy to some people, but these pesticides, I mean, all you got to do is like the tiniest amount of research, and you can quickly see and find out that a lot of our foods, beyond the unhealthy ingredients that we usually have in our foods, these pesticides alone are enough to really affect your health long term. And I tell them too, while it might cost you more upfront, it actually will be cheaper and cost you a lot less in the long run, because you won't have all these hospital bills waiting for you after consuming so much pesticide residue, essentially, is what you're having. It's really disgusting. And a lot of people tell me that I'm like nuts, I'm crazy.
And I feel that people say, oh, just have a cheat day, or just we get out of the holidays. We just had a few months back Thanksgiving and then Christmas, and I don't have a stomach ache going home or overeating. It's just very interesting because I kind of keep that balance and not either spike insulin levels or introduce something. I don't feel awful. So it's really hard to kind of get through that. And I know you're helping your clients with that, kind of getting over that hump, because once you can kind of detox out, the other side feels really good. And having pants that fit is really nice, And so I've been on both spectrums. And that's really where selfishly, if I feel better, then I'm doing more and I produce more and I can be just so much more with my business. And so I know I can, again, back to that word annoying, I can be overwhelming in general when I come into a room, but with more energy because I'm not kind of slugging myself down with some of the things that are behind the scenes. I know it's been helpful too. I think it's very bizarre that as humans, if we can't see it, sometimes we just don't think it's there.
Right. Exactly. And really, I love to think of, being healthier and just a better version of yourself. It's so you can show up better for yourself and everyone else around you. Always like helping yourself first so you can help out other people.
So I don't think you agree that there's a fad diet. It's just more of an awareness program and that you keep it going to the best of your abilities with your environment.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Fad diets, they are so prevalent and so common in the fitness industry. It's honestly really disgusting. Not to say that you can't follow a fad diet and still see results, but by the end of the day, all it really comes down to are, calories in, calories out. So as long as you're in that caloric range you have to be in for your goal, that's all that really matters. Of course, you want more protein than less protein, but beyond those specific things and limiting sugar, sodium, you really don't need a fad diet. I mean, all these fad diets, they're typically set up for people to fail. Yeah. And in some cases, even make money off of people with some of the fad diet programs that they have. And some of these fat loss pills that people take, it's crazy. It's like, I don't think that's going to work too well for you. If anything, it might give you some health problems depending on what you're really taking. So yeah, these fad diets are not sustainable because they're so restrictive. Keto diet, the keto diet being one of those prime examples, because some people just can't take all that fat. And even if they can, some people don't like just being so restrictive with carb intake and just being super fixated on like having 5 to 10% of their calories from carbs.
You're saying something different because people always assume it's the carbohydrates that are causing the problem.
Oh, yeah. A lot of people think that carbs are the devil. Carbs are evil. Carbs are the enemy. The reality is limiting any macronutrient will eventually adjust your calorie intake, which could lead to weight loss if that's your goal. But it's not, again, about limiting carbs per se. Again, it's just being in that caloric deficit. So whether it's increasing your activity level with how much you're eating or just reducing how much you're eating and having, somewhat of an active activity level. It's crazy. Like you don't even technically have to work out to lose weight, but it is better because it gives you those extra health benefits and it helps shorten the gap between you and weight loss because it actually helps burn more calories.
Now, there's something that people can do for free that I think you know about. It's like really interesting. Talk to me about sleep.
Yes. Sleep, that in itself
that help
is
with weight loss.
Yeah, sleep is super, super important. Not just to make you look better and feel better and look and feel younger, but in addition to that, when you get the right amount of sleep and the best quality of sleep, at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep and deep sleep, that will actually help burn fat and actually help gain some muscle for you if you're trying to build some muscle. And it helps repair the muscle tissue, if nothing else, which can also help burn the fat. But additionally, it reduces cortisol levels. So your stress levels are a lot lower. And cortisol, as some people know anyway, it is in fact a stress hormone, which can lead to weight gain and fat gain. So when you have more sleep and less stress, that'll also make it a lot easier to actually burn that fat from your body. And then you'll just wake up more refreshed, have more energy to actually burn more calories then the next morning.
Do you have any advice on caffeine intake and combining that with sleep? Do you have any strategies for your clients just to kind of warn them deep sleep could be an issue with a lot of caffeine?
Yes, 100%. So a lot of people in America, especially, some other countries probably, but especially here, it's so common where people have a lot of caffeine and typically close to bedtime. And sometimes they just don't realize that they're having caffeine because caffeine's in so many different things, like what people drink and even eat on occasion. So my best advice is to don't swear off caffeine necessarily. You can, and that's fine if you want. But if you want to have that extra boost of energy, have caffeine early in the morning at the start of your day. That way you have it right then and there. So then you could probably just get a good solid morning workout in right after you get that caffeine in. but I recommend not really going over 200 milligrams in my personal opinion. I mean, some people can take a little more than that with their tolerance level, but for most people, men and women both, I found that no more than 200 milligrams of caffeine in the morning is good. Because if you have any more than 200 milligrams in the morning, that could actually lead to it not wearing off as quickly and then eventually putting a huge damper on your sleep. Also, cutting caffeine by 2 p.m. is also critical to having, just a healthier sleep and better night's rest at night, because caffeine has a half-life. So if you do not cut it out early on in the day, it can actually lead to still being in your system even at nighttime, which can actually make it that much harder to actually sleep well. I've been there myself, so I know it's not fun. When you're in bed and you're trying to fall asleep, it is horrible.
Yeah. And I just remember 20 years ago, I'd work a couple jobs. And so you have caffeine going into a shift after being in the office. And then I work late. And then you might stay and have a drink with a friend. And then you're going to bed getting 4 or 5 hours, not enough time. And we just, at some point, I don't know how we are younger and we're invincible that way. But now that I know what I know, I can be so much more productive if I watch that. So does this tie into reduction of anxiety if we reduce and have more sleep?
Yes.
Reduce caffeine and more sleep.
Yeah, both. Yeah, when you actually reduce your caffeine intake, that will actually just automatically reduce your stress levels, because caffeine, specifically in coffee or any other drinks for that matter, can actually really rapidly increase stress. It makes you more anxious. It gives you energy, but it also gives you anxious, nervous energy. Especially if you have a stressful situation, it's going to be a lot harder to not react in a stress-free way or stress-free manner. So really limiting that caffeine, but also when you don't get enough sleep, you're also just naturally a lot more cranky. As people say, like, if you don't get your sleep, you're going to be cranky. So making sure you get your Z's, please. Getting at least really 7 hours. You know, some people don't necessarily need as much, but typically a good solid standard for everyone, a good general rule of thumb, 7 to 8 hours.
Yeah. And when I was younger, I used to think, oh, we have to live, we have to experience life, and sleeping, like going home early to get some rest. I would be that person that would keep pushing my husband, young, let's stay out, let's go have some fun. And now New Year's Eve plans? Nope, we're going to bed early. 10 o'clock's the max. And it's just funny, but there's things we got to get done. So let's just say hypothetically, I have this person in my life. He might be my dad, but he comes to town, or I go into town, and he's got to stop at the Whole Foods or the Sprouts or wherever, getting his natural energy drink with the ginseng and all the things you need. So what do you say to a person that's technically drinking healthy canned drinks regularly? What do you say about that?
Yeah, what I say about that is obviously staying away from Red Bull and Monster. That is a good first step. But if your natural energy drink has natural ingredients, that part's good. But if you have too much caffeine in that one single drink or serving or can, whatever it might be, that can actually still be unhealthy. So even healthy ingredients can be unhealthy, basically, especially if the caffeine intake or the caffeine levels are too high in that one serving. So you got to make sure that it doesn't really go, in my personal belief and outlook, that it doesn't really go above 200 milligrams. Because when you start doing that, that's when you start getting into the amount that most energy drinks have that cause a lot of health problems. People that consume 300 milligrams and up, that's when it starts getting dangerous.
And that could be including sugar and the 200 mgs, right?
Yes. You also got to make sure, in addition to that, because some energy drinks have healthy ingredients, but the sugar intake also can be super high from that drink. So you got to make sure that ideally there's no added sugar, or if there is, that it's very low. I would say definitely, personally, no more than a few grams, because the maximum amount of sugar you want in a day for grams, the max, and I don't even recommend it personally, but 36 grams at the most in a whole day.
Okay.
And I'd say that's even a lot of sugar, because I don't even consume half of that in a day.
Well, and is that part of getting more cut? I know you've talked about being healthy and having muscle tone, but when you cut, is it because you're lowering caloric intake, or is it for a limited time, or is it you try to do it all the time? to keep that lean muscle mass?
I always try to keep sugar to a minimum just for overall health, especially if I'm cutting. But even if I'm not, I just love to always limit my sugar just for overall health purposes and reasons. Because sugar, there are so many negative effects on it to your body if you have a lot of it. It's linked to dementia. It's linked to diabetes, of course. It's linked to aging with your skin because a lot of sugar ultimately does strip the collagen from your skin and causes, as a result, wrinkles and just early signs of aging.
A lot of friends would say, well, I'll drink my calories, but I assume that's sugar trying to metabolize in your body. So maybe the PSA needs to be, ladies, you're going to look older if you keep drinking that wine, right? Don't tell me.
Exactly.
They might not like our episode. This might not be good. We might not get a lot of viewership.
But yeah, wine in itself, alcohol then is a whole nother thing because, sugar will actually hurt your collagen. But alcohol, yeah, it takes out the moisture and dries up your skin and can also lead to, breaking down your collagen and leading to wrinkles and early signs of aging as well.
So we'll make sure that I let my dad see this episode, so it wasn't me that told him. It'll be your fault. Is that okay?
Okay. I'll take the blame this time.
Okay, so let's go back to just the overall business model for you and success. Obviously, wellness is important. Being aware of your own surroundings is our responsibility to be paying attention and taking a moment to read labels and so on. In overall business, and we're looking at, for my audience, thought leadership and motivation. I assume that you're more motivated and have higher levels of achieving goals because you feel well. But was there anything else that was instrumental outside of, okay, I got it, eat more clean, pay more attention to your labels? Is there anything else that just helps you from a mindset that you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, I would say, honestly, not just for diet, this is just in general, like for life, really, outside of fitness even. I always like to think of motivation. It gets you going, but consistency keeps you growing. So literally getting that motivation, that spark to have you go in that direction you want to go in. That's what you need to actually get going in whatever direction you want to go in for your life. But if you don't have that consistency, that determination to see it through, then if that motivation goes out, then you're not going to have anything to back it up with. So you have to back up that motivation just in the event that it goes out with determination, consistency. And by doing that, you got to have an action plan and a strategy. So in doing that, for example, if you're trying to work out, trying to lose weight, you want to start, especially if you're a beginner, just with 3 days a week to not overwhelm yourself, but have a game plan. That way, if your motivation's kind of up and down, which usually that happens to many people, you have at least a game plan and a guide on what you're going to do and typically how you're going to do it. So that way you're going to be a lot more consistent and you can see it through even if your motivation's a little off one day. And just having that way of thinking has helped me.
And people, they can follow you online to even get that motivation and look for some guided ideas to even get started, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
In business, we have to follow frameworks to be foundational, to scale and keep growing in a business. So what you're essentially saying is that framework allows you to be consistent, and you might have a day that gets off. You might be traveling and there's not always the opportunity to have what you need, but you have a chance to build out that game plan. So that makes sense to me in business to then also incorporate that into your fitness. Before we wrap up today, I know that I've learned to travel for business with things that I know I need because I might not have access to great drinking water or healthy foods at conferences. So do you have any kind of a random question, quick tips for those that are on the go that are almost must-haves just to keep you on that consistent path? Is there any little tips or hacks you want to share?
Definitely. So what I recommend typically is, especially if you're trying to lose weight, getting some sparkling water and having that on the go, because sparkling water in general, but sparkling water especially keeps you full. That carbonation is an extra strength in what you're drinking to actually keep you full and maintain that fullness, especially on the go. Also beyond that, I highly recommend, no matter your fitness goals, no matter what you're doing in the gym or at home, wherever you work out, to have a packed thing of food. So basically meal prep and prep out a week at a time. That way you're not prepping too much, but you have at least a good solid week's worth of meals to pick from and have for you on the go. And it's really cool, coaches like me and some other coaches out there, we have meals that you can make in 10 minutes or even 15 minutes. And it's super simple, super easy. Yeah, still tasty food, and we'll give you results that you want and need. And then you can just meal prep it along the way throughout the week and take it with you on the go. Those are the two things I recommend the most. So when it comes to just food and drink for your, just meal regimen and healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, definitely setting you up for success when take a moment and do some of that prep work. Where can people find you?
So if you want to find me on my direct personal website, it's romanfischerofficial.com. That's where you can find out more about me, what I do, and all the clients that I've helped, and just seeing their transformations and their testimonials. Also, if you want to become a client and you have some goals, you want to maybe burn fat, gain muscle, flexibility, whatever it is, whatever goals you have, you can definitely check that out and apply from there. Beyond that, if you want to connect with me one-on-one, I would love to connect at Roman Fischer Official on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and even LinkedIn if you're on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to watching for more tips and staying motivated with you. So I really appreciate you being here today.
Definitely. Likewise.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Pathways. For more information about the podcast, books, articles, the blog, and so much more, please visit my website at amberstitt.com. And remember, let's take action today. Thank you for listening.